Before watching this part, please make sure to watch part 1 and part 2 of Backrooms 1 Beyond the Reality to understand the story.
Sleep was a fragile luxury in the Backrooms, and Josh's slumber was haunted by dreams that were both sweet and terrifying. He saw himself with Sarah, sitting at a table in a moonlit restaurant. Their laughter filled the air as he clumsily tried to confess his feelings towards her. "Sarah," he stammered in the dream, his heart pounding, I really enjoy being with you." Sarah's eyes twinkled with warmth. "Ah, Josh," she leaned in, her voice a soft whisper, "I don't want this moment to end." Just as Josh leaned in, hoping to bridge the gap between them, the dream was shattered. A monstrous bacterium, its tendrils reaching like grasping claws, charged into the restaurant. The peaceful scene dissolved into chaos as the creature lunged towards them. Josh woke with a jolt, his breath ragged, cold sweat beading on his forehead. The interior of the train, bathed in the dim, filtered light of the Backrooms, slowly swam into focus. Dr. Selvig, Sarah, and Felix lay around him, still fast asleep. The remnants of the dream clung to him, both the sweetness of his feelings for Sarah and the lingering terror of the bacterium attack. He needed to clear his head, to find a moment of peace in this unsettling world. Quietly, careful not to disturb the others, Josh slipped out of the train. The platform was bathed in the perpetual yellow gloom. But the train, a silent sentinel against the unending expanse, held a strange beauty bathed in that soft, eerie light. Josh took a deep breath, the stale air of the Backrooms stinging his lungs. He walked towards the edge of the platform, his gaze drawn to the distant yellow mist. In the silence, his thoughts swirled, the hope of the maze, the lingering fear of the bacterium, and the growing feelings for Sarah that he barely dared to acknowledge. As he watched, the first faint tendrils of dawn began to pierce the yellow haze. It was a false dawn, a trick of the Backrooms, but it carried with it a flicker of hope. They had survived another night. The maze lay before them, a challenge, and perhaps, just perhaps, the path to freedom. A confession under yellow skies. Josh stood on the platform, the faintest whisper of dawn creeping into the Backrooms. The arrival of Dr. Selvig broke the tranquility, the question, "You awake, mate? How was your sleep?" jolting him back to the reality of their situation. Josh turned, a jolt of surprise running through him. "Selvig, sorry if I woke you up. Didn't mean to." Dr. Selvig chuckled, the sound surprisingly warm in the empty air. "No worries. Couldn't sleep much myself." He settled next to Josh on a nearby bench, their shared gaze lingering on the darkened train where Sarah and Felix still slept. An awkward silence stretched between him, the unspoken weight of Josh's dreams hanging in the air. Finally, he blurted out, "Hey, I don't know. I think I have feelings for Sarah." His cheeks flushed with a sudden wave of embarrassment. Dr. Selvig's response was a soft, understanding chuckle. "Ah, I see. Well, then, you should definitely tell her," he said, a playful glint in his eyes. Josh scoffed, a mix of fear and longing washing over him. I had this really weird dream. I was on a date with her, and, well, everything was perfect. Until, he took a deep breath, that bacterium showed up. Messed it all up. The dream still lingered in his mind, vivid and unsettling. "I don't know, it just feels scary, trying to put myself out there." Selvig, his tone gentler now, patted him on the shoulder. "Don't worry, mate. Sarah's a good friend, resourceful, one of the best. I'm sure she'd be delighted to hear how you feel." The hint of encouragement in Dr. Selvig's voice gave Josh a tiny flicker of hope. Selvig then added, the hint of a smile playing on his lips, "And who knows, I might have a story about the time I found Sarah lost here in the Backrooms. That might break the ice, wouldn't you think?" A chuckle escaped Josh's lips. "Yeah, maybe," he admitted. "Being lost together probably bonds you in a strange way." The camaraderie with Selvig eased his anxiety slightly. They sat there for a while longer, talking quietly as the false dawn broke over the yellow expanse. It was a moment of unexpected connection, born out of shared experience and quiet understanding. Josh's heart still fluttered with a mix of nervousness and hope regarding Sarah, but the weight of his fear had eased, replaced with a tentative resolve to face his feelings. As the false dawn painted the edges of the Backrooms with an eerie light, a sense of bittersweet anticipation hung in the air. Josh's confession had led to a moment of shared vulnerability, a poignant reminder of the bond forged between them as they faced the horrors of the Backrooms together. "Hey, Doc," Josh said, his voice soft and tinged with nostalgia, "I just want to say, I'll really miss these moments with you all. I mean, once we're out, things will be different." Selvig met his gaze, understanding reflected in his eyes. "Me too, Josh. I'll never forget our journey. The way we faced this place together, how close we came to finally finding the exit." He paused, a gentle smile playing at his lips. "Thank you, Josh, for being by my side." A flicker of warmth spread through Josh's chest. "Of course, Doc," he replied, a genuine smile warming his own face. "I'll miss you too. Do you think we'll see each other again, once we're out?" Uncertainty clouded Selvig's eyes. "That's the thing about the Backrooms," he said slowly. "It's unpredictable. When we exit, we might find ourselves scattered across the world, who knows where. So, it's like a random exit. A door we just walk through." Josh pressed, a hint of unease creeping into his voice. Selvig shrugged. "I don't know, my friend. I've never seen the exit. But we're about to find out, aren't we?" A silence fell between them, punctuated by the distant hum of the Backrooms. They stared out at the endless yellow landscape, hearts filled with a strange mix of hope and apprehension. The maze, their ticket to escape, loomed before them. Yet, with that freedom came a bittersweet farewell to the unexpected camaraderie they had forged. For a few moments, they let the silence wash over them. It was a moment of peace, a brief respite in the face of the unknown, before they faced their next challenge, before their paths diverged, perhaps forever. The moment of peace was shattered. Josh's attempt at reconciliation with Selvig was abruptly interrupted. "Hey, Selvig, it's just, I hope you don't mind what Felix said to you earlier. He was, well, he can be harsh sometimes," Josh admitted, a flicker of concern in his eyes. Selvig, ever the optimist, chuckled softly. "Don't you worry about that. Felix means well, even if he doesn't always show it in the best way." He paused, a genuine warmth in his voice. "Besides, you've been fantastic, Josh. It's leadership, yes, but also your quick thinking and courage that's brought us this far. Nah, Doc, it couldn't have happened without any of you." Josh shrugged, his voice trailing off as a distant sound sent a chill down his spine. A scream, a chilling, inhuman scream echoed through the stillness of the Backrooms. "Oh no," Josh whispered, dread settling in his stomach. Please don't tell me it's the bacterium again. Oh God, no. Selvik's face hardened with determination. Looks like it knows we're here. We need to wake him up, fast. Together, they rushed to where Sarah and Felix still slept. Felix, Sarah, wake up, it's here, they shouted, urgency lacing their voices. Sarah jolted awake, her eyes wide with alarm. Oh no, not the bacterium again, she gasped. Felix, startled from his sleep, mumbled incoherently, the bacterium. Not this again. Panic threatened to consume them, but Selvik's voice cut through the fear. Come on, the maze! It's our only chance! They scrambled towards the maze entrance, the screams growing louder with each passing second. Just before they reached it, they turned for a brief glance back at the train, their temporary sanctuary now a beacon for the approaching terror. As they hurtled into the maze and slammed the door shut behind them, they could only gasp for air, their hearts pounding in unison. The echoes of their own hurried breaths were drowned out by the terrifying symphony of the approaching monster. The maze, their path to freedom, now offered only a thin hope of survival. The maze stretched out before them, a tangle of wooden walls and dead ends. Dr. Selvik, a grim look of determination on his face, took the lead. All right, everyone, he warned, his voice echoing in the maze's dim light. Stick together, we don't want to get lost in this thing. The exit is through here. We just need to find the right path. Yes, sir, Sarah replied with forced cheerfulness, her heart pounding against her ribs. They plunged deeper into the maze, navigating the twisting paths. 30 minutes stretched into an eternity of anxious searching, but the exit remained elusive. Felix, unable to contain his frustration, broke the silence, his voice tinged with playful sarcasm. Well, this is fun, Josh. Another brilliant idea, wouldn't you say? Josh, feeling the sting of Felix's words, retorted, Oh, you started again, Felix. Hey, I'm just trying to lighten the mood. Felix replied defensively, getting bored wandering around hopelessly. Sarah let out a nervous chuckle, attempting to break the rising tension. Come on, guys. Selvik cut in, his tone firm but not unkind. Please, can we be serious for a moment? This isn't the time for jokes. We need to focus. The lights within the maze flickered, already dim illumination becoming even more claustrophobic. They pressed onward, their footsteps echoing through the corridors, each turn raising hope and crushing it with equal intensity. Dr. Selvik, usually their beacon of confidence, looked increasingly uncertain as they continued to wander. His gaze scanned the walls, his brow furrowed in concentration. The air in the maze hung heavy with tension and frustration. Each turn brought only disappointment, and the dimming light added to the oppressive atmosphere. Suddenly, a sound broke the silence, a muffled sob echoing from a nearby corner. Dr. Selvik, ever cautious, approached the source of the sound with measured steps. The others followed closely behind, their eyes scanning the dimly lit maze for any sign of danger. As they rounded the corner, they came face to face with a man huddled in the corner, his shoulders shaking with sobs. He wore a mismatched outfit, a bright pink t-shirt emblazoned with a cartoon face that clashed with his grimy overalls. Hey, are you okay? Dr. Selvik asked gently, kneeling down in front of the man. The man looked up, his eyes red-rimmed and filled with despair. My name's Noah, he mumbled, his voice shaky. I've been lost here for what feels like forever. He then spotted Sarah and his demeanor shifted abruptly. He scrambled to his feet and with surprising speed, lunged at her, wrapping his arms around her tightly. Oh, you're an angel, he exclaimed, his voice filled with an unsettling intensity. We should get married. Before Sarah could react, he squeezed her tighter, his grip becoming uncomfortably strong. Sarah shrieked, struggling to pull away. Hey, what the heck? Let go of me, she yelled, panic rising in her voice. Felix and Josh, who had witnessed the scene unfold, burst into laughter, their amusement fueled by the sheer absurdity of the situation. Sarah, however, was not amused. She glared at him, her face flushed with anger. What's so funny? She snapped. Dr. Selvik, his brow furrowed in concern, cleared his throat. Noah, he addressed the man, his voice firm but calm. Perhaps you could explain what happened. How did you end up here? Noah, seemingly oblivious to Sarah's struggle and the others' reactions, launched into a long and rambling story. He spoke of being a maintenance worker tasked with cleaning clogged, poop pipes, in the back rooms, a detail that caused Felix to grimace and cover his mouth in disgust. Of course, Felix couldn't resist a jab. "EW, you do that for a living?" he quipped, his voice dripping with sarcasm. Noah, surprisingly, didn't miss a beat. He fired back a scathing retort, mocking Felix's appearance and lack of useful skills. The two engaged in a childish bickering match, their voices echoing through the maze. Dr. Selvig watched them with a mixture of annoyance and amusement. While he appreciated the distraction, their behavior was childish and unhelpful in their desperate situation. He cleared his throat again, silencing the bickering duo. "All right, that's enough," he said sternly. "We need to focus on getting out of this maze. Noah, if you know anything about its layout, anything at all, please tell us." As the scene fades, Noah hesitates, his eyes darting from person to person. Noah's response was a shrug of the shoulders. "Beats being here alone for another week," he said, his earlier desperation now tinged with a hint of calculation. "Guess I'm stuck with you lot now." Dr. Selvig sighed, exasperated. "All right, fine," he relented. "You can come with us, but no more antics." He shot a pointed look at Noah, who suddenly gained interest in a loose thread on his overalls. Noah, sensing his victory, started bouncing around in excitement. "Yes, finally some company," he exclaimed, his cheerfulness grating on the others. They resumed their trek through the maze, Noah trailing behind with an uncontainable energy that put everyone on edge. However, he seemed determined to stay close to Sarah, shuffling uncomfortably close at every opportunity. Sarah, her patience wearing thin, snapped, "Hey, back off, creep." Noah merely giggled, seemingly amused by her discomfort. "Oh, come on, just having a little fun," he retorted with a wink. Felix, unable to resist an insult, chimed in, "So this is what paid poop pipe cleaning does to a man." Tragic. He let out a loud snort of laughter. Noah, stung by the barb, turned on Felix. "Hey, at least I have a job. What do you even do? Sit around and look ugly all day?" says the guy in overalls and that hideous shirt. Felix shot back. "Your fashion sense is about as clean as those pipes you were bragging about." The roast battle was on. "Noah, at least I take showers. You smell like you crawled out of the pipes yourself." "Felix," says the guy who thinks a wife is something you just grab off the shelf. "Noah, better than being a stuck-up know-it-all who wouldn't survive a day in the real world." "Felix, and you'd survive in a maze. Please, you'd get lost inside your own pants." Dr. Selvig, caught in the crossfire, rubbed his forehead in exasperation. Josh, despite the seriousness of their situation, couldn't suppress a chuckle at the childish exchange. Sarah rolled her eyes, muttering under her breath, "This is going to be a long walk." As they plunged deeper into the depths of the maze, the walls seemed to press in closer, the yellow light growing more oppressive. Finally, the labyrinth presented a cruel choice. A fork in the path, 3 tunnels marked with simple letters, A, B, and C. "Well, this is just perfect," Josh muttered, a sense of dread settling in his stomach. "Which way now?" Dr. Selvig, usually the image of calm guidance, furrowed his brow in contemplation. "We'll have to split up," he finally declared. "Small, quick teams. Cover more ground and increase our chances of finding the exit." Noah, eyes sparkling with mischievous intent, jumped in. "Excellent. Then I'll take Sarah, and we'll go down passage C." Sarah reacted immediately. "Absolutely not," she exclaimed, disgust etched on her face. "I'd rather walk into a swarm of those bacteria than spend another minute with you." Felix, sensing an opportunity to irk his rival, snickered. "Doc, what now?" Selvig, weighing the volatile dynamics, crafted a plan. "Here's what we'll do. Sarah, take Josh and explore passage A." He caught a mischievous glint in Sarah's eye and the faint blush that dusted Josh's cheeks. His next instruction surprised them both. "Noah, you'll go with Felix down passage B." "No way," both Noah and Felix protested in unison. "Hey, Doc, Noah whined, I wanted to be partnered with the pretty lady. Our only chance is to work together, Selvig interrupted firmly. Now, Josh, he addressed the younger man, what about you? What do you say? Josh hesitated, glancing at Sarah. Her expression was unreadable, a mix of apprehension and curiosity. Well, if Sarah's okay with it, he trailed off, his voice laced with uncertainty. Sarah met his gaze. A hint of a smile played at the corner of her lips. Well, it's either that or go with creepy Noah, so. Yeah, sure, she replied. Dr. Selvig nodded. Excellent. I'll take passage C alone. Now, we don't have much time. We'll check each passage to the best of our ability and regroup here in precisely 1 hour. He glanced at his watch, his focus shifting to the immediate task. Just remember, if you find the exit, don't hesitate. Signal the rest of us if you can, but escape is the priority. The passage felt more cramped compared to the main section of the maze. Felix and Noah, an unlikely pair, trudged forward, the silence broken only by the echoing scrape of their feet against the rough floor. Then, a glimmer of hope. In the distance, a thin line of light marked the edge of a doorway. Noah, ever impulsive, rushed towards it, a grin spreading across his face. A door! He exclaimed, his voice filled with excitement. Finally, an exit. Felix, however, froze in his tracks. A wave of dread washed over him, a sickening familiarity rising deep within. No, wait, don't open it, he shouted, his voice laced with urgency. But his warning came too late. Noah, oblivious to the danger, reached for the handle and pulled. The door swung open with a groan, revealing a dark space beyond. But before either of them could react, a slimy, green goo shot out with surprising speed, splattering across Noah's face in a disgusting glob. The door slammed shut with a bang, a deep chuckle echoing from within before fading away. Noah stood there, his face contorted in a mix of surprise and disgust. What is this? He sputtered, wiping the goo off his face with his sleeve. The stench was pungent, making Felix recoil in disgust. Felix, unable to hold back, burst into laughter. Ha! I told you not to open it. Same thing happened to me once. It tastes salty, Noah mumbled, hesitantly licking his finger where the goo had landed. Felix's laughter intensified. You're disgusting, he exclaimed, covering his mouth with his hand. That stuff is definitely not meant to be eaten. Noah, unfazed, wiped his finger on his overalls, the green slime staining the fabric. Whatever, he shrugged. At least it's better than cleaning poop pipes. Felix rolled his eyes, unable to decide whether to be annoyed or impressed by Noah's peculiar resilience. As they stood there, the silence settled again, thicker and heavier now. The memory of the experience hung in the air, a reminder of the unpredictable nature of the backrooms and the strange consequences it held. The passage wound its way deeper into the maze, the dim light casting long, eerie shadows. As they navigated the twisting corridors, Sarah and Josh walked in comfortable silence, a stark contrast to the tense encounter with Noah earlier. Josh, his heart pounding in his chest, felt a surge of courage. This felt like the perfect opportunity to express his feelings. He stopped suddenly, causing Sarah to turn in surprise. Hey, Sarah, he stammered, his voice barely a whisper. I just wanted to say. Sarah met his gaze, a gentle smile playing on her lips. Yeah, what is it, Josh? She asked, her voice tinged with amusement. Josh blushed, his cheeks burning under her scrutiny. I mean, are you really okay with being teamed up with me? I know you could have gone with Dr. Selvig, he trailed off, unsure how to complete his thought. Sarah, sensing his nervousness, chuckled softly. She took a step closer, their faces now only inches apart. Of course, I'm fine with you, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. In fact, I wanted it. Josh's heart leapt in his chest. He stammered, Why you did? Sarah's smile widened. Yeah, she confirmed, her eyes sparkling. You're not so bad yourself, Mr. Accountant. Maybe not as smart, but definitely braver. Josh, flustered yet emboldened, countered, hey, I can be smart too. Before he could finish his playful protest, a blood-curdling scream echoed through the maze. It ripped through the air, shattering the fragile moment between them. Both Sarah and Josh froze, their faces etched with concern and confusion. The scream seemed to come from deeper within the passage, but their initial shock quickly turned into confusion. As they strained their ears, they heard no further sound, no movement, nothing to indicate the source of the scream. What was that? Josh whispered, his voice barely above a breath. Sarah shook her head, her brow knit in worry. I don't know, she replied. But it doesn't sound good. The weight of their interrupted moment hung heavy in the air, replaced by a sense of unease. The unexpected scream served as a stark reminder of the dangers that lurked within the maze, the ever-present threat that overshadowed their developing connection. The silence that followed the piercing scream felt even more ominous. Josh and Sarah, their hearts still pounding, cautiously moved deeper into the passage. Their nerves were frayed, every shadow in the dim light a potential threat. Just as their fear threatened to overwhelm them, a new terror materialized. A figure, clad in gleaming armor, wielding a wicked-looking sword, emerged from the gloom. Sarah gasped and instinctively hid behind Josh, her heart pounding against her ribs. Josh, surprised but determined, stood his ground, his eyes locked on the advancing knight. With frightening speed, the armored figure lunged forward, thrusting the sword towards them. A split-second reaction saved them. Josh, his body moving on pure instinct, pulled Sarah sideways. The sword missed its mark and embedded itself into the cracked wall of the passage. The knight, its initial strike thwarted, struggled to free the blade, pulling and twisting with surprising strength. Yet the sword seemed fused to the wall. It was their chance. Eyes shining with adrenaline-fueled determination, Josh spotted a loose stone at his feet. In one swift motion, he scooped it up and hurled it with all his might. It struck the armored figure square in the chest. To their astonishment, the knight seemed to shatter, the metal body crumpling upon itself, metallic pieces scattering across the floor. That was close, Sarah managed to say, her voice trembling slightly. She stepped out from behind Josh, her face pale but her eyes wide with surprise. Josh let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. What the heck was that? Things are getting seriously weird in here, he muttered, still trying to process the unexpected encounter. With a shared glance of uneasy amazement, they continued deeper into the passage. The fear of the armored knight lingered, but fueled a new sense of determination. They had survived one surprise attack, and unsettling as it was, it also ignited a sense of resilience within them. Excitement shot through them as they spotted the exit at the end of Passage A. A sliver of hope cut through the lingering fear of the armored knight and the unsettling silence that followed. With renewed determination, they quickened their pace, eager to finally escape the maze's oppressive confines. But the Backrooms had one final cruel trick to play. Just as they were about to step through the exit, the ground beneath them trembled. A monstrous form, sculpted out of rough stone, rose from the floor, blocking their path. Its misshapen eyes glowed with a menacing light, and its jagged limbs crackled with unnatural energy. Josh and Sarah instinctively fell into a defensive stance, backs pressed together, the earlier moment of closeness forgotten amidst this fresh danger. Their hearts pounded in unison, matching the thunderous roar of the rock creature as it prepared to attack. Suddenly, a sharp crack echoed through the passage. The rock monster froze, and before their very eyes, it crumbled to the ground, a shower of pebbles and dust cascading around them. Dumbfounded, they searched for the source of the attack and spotted Dr. Selvig emerging from the shadows. A battered pistol was still smoking in his hand, the lingering scent of gunpowder hanging in the air. Selvig, Josh exclaimed, a wave of both relief and surprise washing over him. He rushed towards his mentor, giving him an impulsive hug. You're alive, thank goodness. Selvig returned the hug, a look of relief replacing his usual calm demeanor. Yes, I told you I'd be alright, he reassured Josh. Sarah, her eyes still wide with shock, joined them. Wait, you had a gun this whole time? She asked in disbelief. Selvig chuckled sheepishly. No, I found this abandoned in another section of the maze, he explained. Came in handy, it seems. Then his brow furrowed in concern. Now, where are Felix and Noah? Have you seen him at all? Josh glanced back at the passageway. No, we split up. They took passage B. I thought they'd have made it out by now. Sarah sighed. Knowing those two, I highly doubt it. They're probably in trouble again. Selvig nodded grimly. Let's not waste any time then. We need to find them. He looked back towards the exit, determination hardening in his eyes. As they ventured deeper into the maze, the oppressive silence stretched between them. Josh, ever curious, broke the tension. Hey, Selvig, he began, how old are you, if you don't mind me asking? Selvig, caught off guard by the sudden shift in topic, replied, I'm 24. Whoa, that's not too far off. Josh exclaimed, I'm 22. Guess that makes you my senior guide, huh? A chuckle escaped Selvig's lips. Something like that, he said, a hint of amusement in his voice. Sarah, however, wasn't amused. Guys, that's not important right now, she interjected, her voice laced with concern. We need to find Felix and Noah. As if on cue, a familiar voice echoed through the maze. Hey, over here! It was Felix, emerging from a side passage, his disheveled appearance a stark contrast to his usual bravado. Relief washed over Josh. Felix, I thought we lost you and Noah. Selvig, however, noticed the absence of the other team member. Where is Noah? He asked, his voice firm but laced with concern. Felix looked sheepish. I don't know, he stammered, his eyes darting around. There was a sudden smoke, and I lost him. Sarah's face paled. Oh no, now what are we going to do? A tense silence descended upon them. Felix, desperate to escape the growing tension and the dangers of the backrooms, blurted out, forget Noah, Selvig. It was our plan to get out of here all along. He's new, barely even knows what's going on. We're so close, Doc, don't break our hope. We have to leave him behind. Josh and Sarah remained silent, their eyes shifting between Felix and Selvig, the weight of the decision hanging heavy in the air. Selvig's face was etched with conflict, his loyalty to his team warring with his inherent compassion. He saw the desperation in Felix's eyes, the yearning for freedom after countless encounters with the backrooms horrors. He understood the fear and the desire for self-preservation. But leaving someone behind, especially someone like Noah who was new to this terrifying existence, went against everything he stood for. Selvig opened his mouth to speak, his voice wavering with indecision. But I mean, Felix, sensing his hesitation, grasped Selvig's hand, his voice pleading. Please, Doc, we haven't seen our real world in so long. We can't just abandon hope. Just the four of us, we can escape. Forget Noah, we need to do this for ourselves. Selvig stared into Felix's hopeful eyes, his own filled with a mixture of empathy and responsibility. He saw a reflection of his own desperate longing for freedom, a yearning that had been gnawing at him for far too long. The weight of the decision was immense. Could he justify sacrificing one for the potential freedom of four? The answer, it seemed, lay shrouded in the murky depths of the maze, a path yet to be chosen. Sarah's voice cut through the tension, her normally strong demeanor tinged with a hint of doubt. Are we sure abandoning Noah is the right thing to do? She asked, her eyes imploring the others for reassurance. We can't just become selfish. Josh echoed her sentiment. Yeah, I don't know, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. I can't just leave him there. Selvig remained agonizingly silent, his own internal battle mirrored in the deep lines etched on his face. The desire to save a life wrestled with the undeniable yearning for their own escape. Felix, sensing the group's wavering resolve, spoke again, his voice desperate. We're not being cruel, think about it. It's our best chance to get out of this hellhole. We can't risk everything for one person. Just then, Noah emerged from a side passage, relief washing over them. There you are, Selvig exclaimed, genuine relief evident in his voice. Thank heavens you're all right. As Noah approached with a shaky gait, a sudden, terrifying sight unfolded. From within the passage he had just emerged, a colossal hand shot out, grasping at Noah's ankles and pulling him back. Selvik instinctively surged forward to help, but Felix's harsh voice stopped him in his tracks. "We have to go. It's our only chance. If we try to help him, we're all dead." Sarah gasped in horror. "But we can't just leave him." "Noah." Josh's eyes widened. "What do? We can't just stand here." Noah, his face contorted in terror, let out a desperate cry, "Guys, please. Help me. Don't be cruel. Please." His tear-filled eyes fixed on each of them, pleading desperately. Selvik felt his resolve crumbling. I. Felix's voice was cold and decisive. "No, Doc. We can't help him. We must keep moving. Now." They watched in horror as the monstrous hand dragged Noah back into the tunnel, his screams echoing through the labyrinth as they faded to a chilling silence. Felix, Sarah, Josh, and Selvik entered another room, seeking refuge from the horrifying scene they had just witnessed. The walls seemed to close in on him, oppressive and suffocating. A feeling of guilt washed over them, their collective conscience heavy with the weight of their decision. Their own desperate yearning for freedom was now tainted with the memory of Noah's terrified screams and pleading eyes, the echoes of his final, accusing words hanging in the stagnant air, "You traitors." The guilt hung heavy in the air, an oppressive force suffocating any hopes of respite they might have imagined in the unfamiliar room. Silence gnawed at him, interspersed with choked sobs and the occasional sigh filled with despair. Finally, Sarah broke the oppressive quiet. "We shouldn't have done it," she whispered, her voice trembling. "We left him to die." Josh's shoulders hunched forward, the weight of the decision crushing his spirit. Noah was right, he mumbled, his eyes distant as if staring back at the terrible scene in the tunnel. "We're cowards." Selvik, leader of the group and a man of inherent decency, was visibly shaken. The guilt etched on his face was even deeper than his desire for escape that had burned so brightly before. Felix, though, remained unyielding. It was the only way, he insisted, his voice lacking its usual bravado. A hint of vulnerability surfaced, an attempt to justify the terrible choice. "We need to get out of here. It wasn't safe to go back." Sarah's voice rose, sharp with a mix of anger and anguish. "Safe? And what about leaving him alone with that thing?" "He was already gone," Felix retorted defensively. "There wasn't anything we could do. But we didn't even try." Josh interjected, his despair morphing into a surge of anger directed at Felix's relentless pragmatism. Selvik, until now resigned and silent, finally spoke. His voice was a low rumble punctuated by self-reproach. "It was my responsibility. I should have done something." Felix bristled. "You would have gotten us all killed, Doc. We couldn't have stopped it. This place." He gestured wildly around at the sterile room, a stark contrast to the maze's unpredictable dangers. "It changes people. We have to do what it takes to survive." Sarah scoffed. "Survive? Is that what you call it? Leaving people to die, turning into monsters ourselves?" The tension in the room was unbearable. Their arguments, usually a sign of their strong bond, now felt hollow. The horrifying decision they'd made had cracked their foundation, and it was impossible to ignore the growing chasm between them. Selvik's voice, heavy with resignation, cut through the tense silence. "All right, listen," he said, his usual authoritative tone tempered by the lingering guilt. "What happened to Noah? It was terrible. But we have to move on. We can't change the past." He cleared his throat, forcing himself to continue. "From now on, we don't talk about Noah. He's gone. We need to focus on escaping this place." Sarah remained silent, her heart heavy with sorrow and regret. She knew Selvik was right, in a pragmatic sense, but it didn't lessen the ache within her. Josh, though still wrestling with his conscience, understood the grim reality. "Okay," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. I get it. We have to keep moving." Felix, sensing the shift in momentum, felt a flicker of relief wash over him. "Exactly," he said, a forced enthusiasm creeping back into his voice. "Let's finally get out of this nightmare." With a heavy collective sigh, the four of them turned back towards the labyrinthine corridors of the Backrooms. Their hearts were laden with the terrible decision they had made, but a newfound determination to escape the oppressive maze burned within them. That, they agreed, would be their only way to honor the memory of the one they had left behind. As they ventured deeper, they encountered a long hallway. Its stark white walls and flickering, yellow lights seemed to stretch endlessly before them. Yet, their eyes were drawn to what lay ahead, the outline of a doorway visible at the far end. Could this, at last, be the exit? It was a faint glimmer of hope amidst the darkness, a promise of escape that beckoned them forward. And so, the four survivors, forever changed by the horrors they'd witnessed, pressed on. Their journey was far from over, but the prospect of freedom pushed them forward. Their weary eyes finally found solace upon seeing a door at the end of the hallway. Across it, in bold lettering, shone the word, "Exit." A wave of relief washed over them, a feeling so intense it almost felt unreal after their arduous journey. Finally, Josh exclaimed, his voice brimming with a desperate hope. "We made it, but the Backrooms, ever cruel, wouldn't allow such an easy escape." As they approached the door, a monstrous creature materialized before them, its hulking form blocking the exit. Its guttural roar echoed through the hallway, shattering their elation. "Oh no," Sarah whispered, her heart sinking back into despair. "What do we do now?" Felix, ever the pragmatic one, glanced at Selvig. "Doc, use the gun," he urged, his voice laced with desperation. Selvig, his face etched with determination, gripped the pistol tightly. He raised it, aiming at the creature, the weight of their survival resting on his trigger finger. Just as he was about to fire, the beast charged, its monstrous form filling the hallway. Panic surged through them. In a moment of chaos, they scattered, scrambling to avoid the creature's deadly attack. Sarah, her heart pounding against her ribs, found herself separated from the others. Fear propelled her forward, leading her deeper into the maze's labyrinthine corridors. Felix, with his gun now useless due to an empty chamber, cursed under his breath. He sprinted down another path, hoping to find a way to outsmart the creature or lead it away from the others. Selvig, dodging the creature's powerful swipe, landed in a roll, adrenaline fueling his every move. He knew their only chance was to lure the creature away, giving the others precious time to escape. Josh, his protective instincts kicking in, found himself shielding Sarah from the creature's gaze. As the beast lumbered towards them, Josh's mind raced, searching for a way to fight back. Suddenly, the creature stopped, its attention momentarily diverted as Selvig emerged from another corner of the hallway, yelling and waving his arms. It charged towards him, its roar echoing once again. Selvig, employing his years of experience in the Backrooms, led the creature on a wild chase through the maze, weaving through corridors and dodging its attacks. His goal, to buy the others enough time to find the real exit, if there even was one. Meanwhile, Sarah, realizing Josh was risking his life for her, pushed him away. "Go, find the others," she shouted, her voice hoarse with fear and determination. While Selvig hunted desperately for ammunition, his heart pounded in his chest. Every second ticked by like an agonizing eternity, each one potentially costing Josh, Sarah, or Felix their lives. Then, a glimmer of hope. A stray bullet cartridge lay abandoned on the cold floor. He dove for it, fingers fumbling as he hastily reloaded the gun. The creature's roar echoed through the maze, a grim reminder that someone was likely paying the price for his delay. The scene of chaos unfolded before him. The monstrous beast had cornered Josh, its gleaming claws an inch away from tearing into his flesh. Sarah's scream, raw with terror, ripped through the air. "Josh, no!" Josh closed his eyes, bracing himself for his imminent end. In that split second of absolute clarity, there was only the sting of regret he wouldn't be there for Sarah anymore. But fate, so often cruel within the Backrooms, had a twist in store. Felix, in a blinding surge of bravery or foolhardiness, lunged forward, shoving Josh out of the way. The creature's claw found its target, not in Josh, but in Felix's flesh. A gut-wrenching cry tore from Felix's lips as he stumbled backward. Josh, shocked and horrified, stumbled to his feet, shaken from the near-death experience. Selvig's opportunity had arrived. He raised the newly loaded gun, took aim, and fired. The creature screeched as the bullet found its mark, causing its form to flicker and distort. With a final, unearthly wail, it vanished, leaving nothing but an acrid smell hanging in the air. Silence fell, deafening in contrast to the previous cacophony. Josh rushed to Felix's side, cradling the dying man's head in his lap. Tears streamed down his face, a mix of raw grief and overwhelming guilt. "Why?" he choked out. "Why would you do that for me, mate? I should have been the one." Sarah knelt beside them, her voice laced with desperation. "Is there anything we can do? A bandage? Some medicine?" Selvig, his face a mask of sorrow, shook his head. "I'm afraid not," he said, his voice thick with desolation. "We don't carry medical supplies in the back rooms. He's lost too much blood." Felix, his strength fading, turned his head towards his friends with a weak gasp. "Leave me," he coughed, a few drops of blood spattering the floor. "Get out of this hell, while you still can." Josh's grip on Felix tightened. "We're not leaving without you," he cried, a flicker of desperation reigniting in his eyes. "We can find a way." Selvig placed a steadying hand on Josh's shoulder. "Felix is right," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "It's the only way." Felix gave Josh a faint, bittersweet smile. "Don't worry, Doc. I trust you to get these two out of here." Knowing they were fighting a losing battle, Selvig nodded somberly. "You shouldn't have risked your life like that, Felix." "We could have." Felix cut him off, his voice fading with each word. "Look at me, accountant boy." Josh, overwhelmed, did as instructed, his own tears blurring his vision. "You're a good man, stronger than you think. I saw it from the start." With that, the life faded from Felix's eyes. His body went limp, the final breath leaving his lips in a soft sigh. Josh erupted into a gut-wrenching sob. "No, no," he cried, holding Felix's lifeless body tightly. Sarah, her own face streaked with tears, choked out a sob. "He's gone." Selvig, with a solemn expression, gently closed Felix's eyes. "He's at peace now, Josh. We have to let him go." Josh continued to weep, his body shaking with uncontainable grief. Selvig wrapped an arm around the younger man, offering silent support as Josh mourned the loss of his friend. Sarah stood nearby, the weight of Felix's sacrifice crashing down on her. Selvig's voice cracked through the grief-laden atmosphere. Felix wouldn't want his sacrifice to be wasted, he said, his words ringing with a newfound, steely determination. "He died so we could live." Josh, wiping away his tears, stood tall, a fire rekindled in his eyes. "He's right," he choked out. "We owe him that much." Sarah, her features a portrait of mingled sorrow and resilience, nodded in agreement. "Felix, he gave us a second chance. We're so close now." But just as they thought they'd reached the end of their trials, a scream echoed through the maze. It was a chilling reminder that the Backrooms were as merciless as they were unpredictable. Selvig's eyes widened. "The bacterium!" he exclaimed, his voice laced with urgency. "We have to hurry. That creature is relentless, and we can't be caught out in the open." With a swiftness born of desperation, they reached the exit door and shut it behind them, sealing the echoing scream of the bacterium in the maze. For a moment, they stood as one, breathing heavily as they grappled with the weight of the choice they had to make. Before them were two imposing metal slides marked A and B. The promise of freedom lay on the other side of one of them, but the grim threat of death likely lay behind the other. "What do we do now?" Josh asked, his voice laced with tension. Selvig's face mirrored the weight of responsibility. "We need to choose the right slide," he said. "It's the only way out of here." Sarah, ever practical but still shaken by Felix's sacrifice, eyed the slides warily. "How do we know which is safe? One of them could be a trick. Feeling the weight of their desperate situation, Josh turned to Selvig. "Doc, the camera," he said, his voice steadier now. "Can you check the footage? Maybe it will offer a clue." Selvig fumbled with the camera, his hands working quickly. "It says," he began, studying the grainy footage, "Slide B is the real exit. Slide A. There's a sharp drop, a deadly fall. We have to take Slide B." Sarah remained cautious, not wanting to trust blindly after their harrowing experience. "I'm not convinced. We could fall straight into another trap." Josh looked at Sarah, his eyes pleading. "We can't stay here. We have to take a chance, for Felix. He wanted us to trust each other, remember?" Sarah sighed, the pain of loss still fresh in her heart. "All right." With trembling steps, they approached Slide B together, side by side. They took a deep breath. And with one last glance back at the maze that had taken so much from them, they descended into the darkness, their fates suspended in the terrifying, unpredictable reality of the Backrooms. Scene 44, the final hurdle. The slide deposited them into yet another sterile room, but this time with hope coursing through their veins. A simple sign hung above their heads with a bold proclamation: "Exit." Underneath, a message read, "Congratulations, you have chosen the correct path. Complete your escape from the Backrooms with this final slide." Elation surged through Josh. "We did it!" he cried out, joy temporarily chasing away the weight of grief and exhaustion. "We're going home." Sarah allowed herself a brief, radiant smile. After everything they had endured, the prospect of returning to the world they had left behind was an almost unimaginable dream. Finally, she breathed, relief washing over her. Even Selvig, the ever-cautious leader, let a spark of hope flicker in his eyes. "We did it," he echoed. "We defied the odds." Their celebration, however, was short-lived. As they approached the final exit, they realized the slide was sealed shut. No obvious mechanism or handle presented itself. A wave of exhaustion mixed with frustration washed over Josh. "What now?" he asked, his voice laced with a hint of despair. "Don't panic," Sarah said, trying to maintain composure. "There must be a way." Selvig, with his mind accustomed to solving puzzles of survival within the Backrooms, immediately began studying the slide mechanism and the surrounding area. "Give me a minute," he said, "let's not give up hope just yet. There has to be a way to trigger its opening." He circled the slide, running his hands along the metal, searching for a hidden button or a pressure point. Sarah scanned the room, seeking any sign of instructions or clues. Josh paced restlessly, the joy of their near escape turning into gnawing anxiety. And so, after escaping monsters, navigating treacherous mazes, and witnessing the tragic sacrifice of their friend, their final challenge came not in the form of a terrifying beast or an impossible puzzle. Well, a click and a whirring sound filled the room as Selvig discovered a hidden button, revealing the escape route. Relief washed over their faces, tinged with a touch of sadness as they realized this might be their final goodbye. "All right," Selvig said, his voice slightly choked with emotion, one by one. As Selvig prepared to descend, Josh stopped him. "Selvig," he said, his voice thick with a mix of anticipation and apprehension. "Will we ever see each other again?" Selvig sighed, a somber smile gracing his lips. "I don't know, mate," he said. "This exit will likely lead us back to our own worlds, different places and different times. But who knows what fate holds?" Sarah chimed in, her voice wavering. "I'll miss this. I'll miss all these moments with you guys." A chuckle escaped Selvig's lips, tinged with a hint of self-deprecation. "You'll miss surviving monster attacks and navigating deadly mazes." Sarah grinned, a flicker of amusement breaking through the sadness. "No, silly, but I'll miss the camaraderie, the bond we formed. It's something I'll never forget." Selvig took a moment to pull out a small card and handed it to Josh. "Josh," he said, "you're always welcome at my research lab at St. Carlos. Come visit anytime, friend." Josh's eyes welled up. He pulled Selvig into a tight hug, the unspoken words of gratitude and shared experience hanging heavy in the air. As Selvig descended the slide, Sarah approached Josh, a wistful smile playing on her lips. "Josh," she said softly. Josh turned to face her, his heart pounding in his chest. Sarah leaned forward and planted a gentle kiss on his lips, a silent promise hanging between them. "You're always welcome to visit me in Texas," she said, her voice soft. "The St. Law Museum. I've heard great things about it." Josh's cheeks flushed. "I've heard of it too," he stammered, a spark of hope igniting in his eyes. I will." Sarah leaned in again, their foreheads touching. "I'll miss you very much, Josh." With a final lingering look, she descended the slide, leaving Josh alone in the sterile room. He turned back for one last glance at the locked slide, a gateway that would transport him back to his world, forever changed by his ordeal in the backrooms. Taking a deep breath, he closed his eyes and stepped onto the slide, the whooshing sound engulfing him as he embarked on his final descent, a journey not just out of the backrooms, but towards an uncertain future, carrying with him the memories of a harrowing experience, the loss of a friend, and the embers of a newfound connection. The familiar sting of fluorescent lights assaulted Josh's eyes as he emerged from the slide. He blinked, adjusting to the sudden brightness after the stark white room of the backrooms. He found himself sprawled on the floor, behind his desk in his office. He sat up slowly, taking a moment to absorb the familiar surroundings. The droning hum of the computer, the stacks of papers, the framed picture of his family, it all felt surreal, a stark contrast to the nightmarish world he had just escaped. "Josh, you here?" a voice asked, breaking the silence. Josh turned to see Ms. Kensington, his boss, standing at the doorway, her face etched with concern. "Oh, Ms. Kensington," Josh stammered, his voice hoarse. "Yes, I'm here. You haven't come to the office for a whole day," Ms. Kensington said, her voice laced with a mixture of annoyance and worry. "I told you to fetch those files and you suddenly disappeared." Josh's heart skipped a beat. He had been gone for an entire day in the real world. The time dilation within the backrooms seemed to defy logic. He struggled to find an explanation, the truth of his ordeal too unbelievable to even consider sharing. Instead, he sighed and muttered, I'm not feeling well. Apologies, Ms. Kensington." Ms. Kensington, her brow furrowed, seemed to accept his vague explanation for now. "All right," she said, her voice softening slightly. "For now, go home and get some rest. Your family is worried sick." As Ms. Kensington left, Josh looked around his office, the familiar space now tinged with an unsettling strangeness. The backrooms had irrevocably changed him, leaving an indelible mark on his soul. He knew he wouldn't forget the harrowing experiences, the fear, the loss, and the unexpected connections he had forged within the maze. But with each passing moment in this familiar reality, the horrors of the backrooms seemed to recede ever so slightly, replaced by a newfound appreciation for the normalcy he had once taken for granted. Josh's gaze drifted across his office, finally settling on his friend, David, leaning against the doorway. A wave of relief washed over him as he saw the familiar freckled face and friendly grin. "Josh, where have you been?" David asked, his voice laced with concern. "You were missing for a whole day. The bosses were going crazy." Josh hesitated, torn between the urge to share his unbelievable story and the fear of sounding insane. With a sigh, he settled on a partial truth. "What? It was only a day?" He feigned surprise, his voice hoarse. I don't know, David. I just wasn't feeling well." David raised an eyebrow, skepticism evident in his gaze. "Not feeling well? You look like you've seen a ghost." Josh forced a smile, the memory of the backrooms still sending shivers down his spine. "It's nothing, just some late nights catching up on work." He knew he couldn't tell David everything, not yet. He wasn't even sure he fully understood it himself. But the memories of Sarah, Selvig, and Felix, the fear, the loss, the camaraderie, were etched deep within him. Sensing Josh's emotional turmoil, David clapped him on the shoulder. "Look, mate," he said in a concerned tone, "I think you need some serious rest. All this late night work is getting to you. How about we ditch the office for a bit and head to the bar?" "My treat." Josh pondered for a moment. He did crave normalcy, a chance to escape the lingering shadows of the backrooms. With a tired smile, he agreed. "Yeah," he said, a hint of genuine excitement creeping into his voice. "Let's go and have some fun." And sir, as they stepped out of the office and into the bustling city streets, Josh took a deep breath. He was still haunted by his experience, forever changed by the horrors he had witnessed and the bonds he had formed within the maze. The lights of the bar cast long shadows, reflecting Josh's contemplative mood. He and David had spent the evening catching up, laughing about old projects and sharing stories as they sipped their drinks. The hum of conversation and the clinking of glasses served as a welcome distraction from the lingering thoughts of the back rooms. As the night wore on, Josh took the opportunity to ask, "So, David, how's everything been going? I mean, while I was away, was it a complete disaster without me?" David smirked and leaned back in his chair. "Things were a bit chaotic at first," he admitted. "But surprisingly, it all worked out. The company just closed a huge deal, and the revenue looks great." Josh raised his eyebrows in genuine surprise, a sense of relief washing over him. He chuckled, "Well, that's certainly unexpected. Guess I'm not quite as irreplaceable as I thought, huh?" They shared a genuine laugh, the banter easing some of the tension that still lingered within Josh. As the evening wound down, however, a familiar pang of longing returned. David clapped Josh on the shoulder before getting up. "Right, well, gotta head out," he said. "Catch you later, mate." With a wave and a departing grin, David left Josh alone in the booth. The familiar melancholy swept over him as he watched his friend disappear into the bustling night. He thought of his other friends, the brave and enigmatic Dr. Selvig, and Sarah, with her sharp wit and quiet resilience. "I hope I'll see them again," he murmured to himself, a flicker of longing in his voice. With a sigh, he drained his glass and made the decision to head home. The warmth and love of his family, untouched by the nightmarish world of the Backrooms, awaited him. As he stepped out into the cool night air, he didn't look back. He couldn't erase the scars of the Backrooms, the memories that would forever remain with him. But for now, he could choose to focus on the present, the normalcy of his world, and the loved ones who had become his anchors. His time in the Backrooms was over. Now, it was time to step forward into the life that awaited him with a newfound appreciation for the people and the world he'd almost lost.